Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. And my name is Rachel Smith. I am the Deputy County Executive and Chief of Staff to King County Executive Dow Constantine. And I want to welcome everybody, say good morning, and introduce you to the Future of Work Leadership Conference hosted by the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. It is really my pleasure to be here with everyone today. Before we sort of get into what I know is going to be a really interesting conversation this morning, I would like to say just a few words about the issue that I know I've been spending all of my time on, and I certainly know is on the minds of everyone in our community, which is COVID-19. I'm going to start by giving us a little bit of background. As everybody knows, we have been kind of the epicenter of the disease outbreak, both in the country initially, and then certainly here in Washington State. This community has rallied, has stood up, has helped bend the curve, and we have been able to go from what was what I call extreme social distancing and moved into the governor's articulated phases 1.5 and now phase 2 here in King County. And that has been a sort of steady increase in activity over the last handful of weeks. I'm going to start with sort of the challenging news, which is as we have moved into these new phases, as we have seen increased activity, as we have had folks getting out and about and enjoying the sunny weather like we're having today, and other kinds of activities, we have seen an increase in our case numbers. Now, of course, this is not the only number that we look at, but it is certainly an important one. Last week, we saw the highest week count, case count number since May 10th, and the numbers are up again this week. Now, I'm going to caveat all of that by saying, additionally, testing is up, which naturally helps root out and find where disease is in this community. We also know that opening things up drives the numbers up. That increased activity necessarily means more people are getting exposed. And what I would call good news, if you can call it good news, is that we haven't seen any extreme spikes in any particular population. So certain activity or certain group of people have not found themselves sort of overrepresented in the new case numbers. So I want to encourage all of us not to sort of despair in that information, but instead take this as an opportunity to really double down all of our efforts to stay safe. And the Bellevue Chamber has been a huge partner with us. So a couple things. One, I want to tell folks that in good news, we have doubled the amount of testing in King County over the last 2 weeks. And that also includes additional testing sites here on the east side. So that is good news. Our numbers for our most vulnerable populations, so those living in long-term care facilities, homeless facilities, et cetera, are staying manageable. And another key indicator, which is around hospital and healthcare readiness, is still in the green. It is looking good. So my message for everybody today is really going to be to stay vigilant, to stay safe, and to wear a mask. And I'll sort of end my remarks focused on that. Again, I want to thank the Bellevue Chamber for being a wonderful partner with King County government as we look at distribution of masks. King County has purchased 25 million masks, and we are partnering with chambers across the county and with the King County Library System to distribute them to all of those who need them, whether it is a business, whether it's a low-income community, you name it. We want to get masks into their hand. And this distribution is just, I can't tell you the enormity of the effort, and we absolutely couldn't be doing it without our key partners like chambers. We expect our next shipment of disposable masks coming soon, and then those shipments will keep coming. And we've been kind of rolling this out slowly, but I think we'll also be able to really make a large pronouncement about this here very soon. So if you need them, let us know. We want everybody to be wearing a mask, both per the governor and the King County public health orders, but also just because it is the right thing to do. And since we have 25 million of them, there's absolutely no excuse for not having one. I also want to share that in that same spirit of getting the tools into the hands of our community, FEMA has provided 4,000 infrared thermometers. Those are going to business associations around the state. We at King County have been distributing hand sanitizer. So we really, believe in sort of this public-private partnership that we are trying to articulate here to make sure that we don't look passively at this virus, but instead we use all the tools in our toolbox as a community to fight it, to keep it down, so that we can do what we all want to do and our sort of shared goal, which is to continue to be safe, to continue to get people back to work, back to school, and to continue to generate the kind of economic activity that has made this community the one we all love. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words this morning. And now I would like to introduce Joe Fain, President and CEO of the Bellevue Chamber. Joe?
Keeping residents protected and helping businesses prepare for restart. And the Bellevue Chamber team has been working around the clock in partnership with all your folks at King County Emergency Management to help get those thousands of masks and bottles of sanitizers out the door. So far, I think we've helped over 200 local businesses in just the past 2 weeks, thanks to the foresight of Rachel and the Executive Council team and her team. So we will be open today for another round of pickup if you still have, and we still have supplies available. So any business or nonprofit who is in need of this, please make sure that you visit our website or click the link that just popped up on your screen and make arrangements to come by and pick up the PPE that we all know that we need to stay safe as we open up. Again, visit us online at bellevuechamber.org or just click that request button on your screen. I want to make a special thanks again to Executive Constantine and Deputy Executive Rachel Smith and the whole team at King County for doing such great work. I know the amount of effort that they've had to put in to coordinating not just the effort for the PPE distribution amongst the different chambers throughout the county, but all the other things that they're doing with King County Public Health to help keep us from seeing a rebound that could be really disastrous, not just in human terms, but certainly in economic terms as well. I also want to thank our sponsors for supporting this series as we help prepare each of you for the future of work. We're excited to welcome thousands of Amazonians to Bellevue over the next few years and are deeply grateful for the support that the Amazon company has done in providing support as the presenting sponsor for this year's program. That presenting sponsorship did not come with naming rights, and we can all wonder whether or not that would be a good or a bad idea. But it's excited to see Amazon continue to invest more in our great community here throughout both sides of the lake. I also want to thank our major sponsors: Microsoft, Puget Sound Energy, King County, the City of Bellevue, and AT&T. Our corporate sponsors, Falco Salt and the Port of Seattle, and our associates, ACES Northwest program, as well as the University of Washington. And I'd like to recognize our growing list of virtual conference table captains. They have stepped forward to provide their guests a VIP experience. Employees and team members at our cable captain companies enjoy several additional perks, as well as our conference program. And we're excited to recognize AR/VR Studio, GMI, Her Interactive, Accelerate, Seattle Children's, AAA of Washington, HDR, the Partners Group, and Sweeney Conrad. For information on bringing your team this recognition and benefits, please contact us. Now, I would like to hand over the program to Anthony Robinson from the University of Washington's Global Innovation Exchange right here in Bellevue's Blossoming Spring District. Anthony is going to introduce today's keynote speaker, but first he's going to tell us a little bit about the future of education right here on the East Side and some of the exciting and innovative executive education opportunities launching soon at GIX. Anthony, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Joe. I'm Anthony Robinson, the Associate Director of the University of Washington's Global Innovation Exchange, or GIX, as we like to call it. Thanks again for joining us. I'll take just a few minutes of your time to talk about GIX. I'll share information with you about our new professional learning programs, and then I'll introduce you to Richard Wang, our speaker for today. So first, what is GIX? We're a 3-year-old partnership between the University of Washington, Tsinghua University in China, and Microsoft. We're based in your backyard in Bellevue, in the Spring District, and we bring together top faculty and learners from around the world to work closely with industry, nonprofit, and NGO partners and startups. The goal of GIX? Well, that's simple: to develop leaders in innovation. We do this by delivering 2 master's degrees and learning opportunities for professionals like you. The first degree we offer is a 15-month-long Master's of Science in Innovation Technology. It's a project and team-based degree delivered in partnership with companies and organizations like Microsoft, T-Mobile, Vulcan, Path, and the Port of Seattle, the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. Employees from those companies act as mentors to our students, and they solve real-world problems in partnership with them. They tackle tough challenges in health and medical technologies, clean energy and emissions, agricultural technology, firefighter safety, robotics, and more. For our partners, it's a surprisingly economical way to explore a problem area with some very bright minds. And for our students, it's an invaluable opportunity to apply the hardware and software, design, and business skills they've learned in our curriculum. Our second degree focuses on data science, and it builds on the MSTI degree. It takes place over 6 months at Tsinghua University in Beijing, and it provides a fantastic opportunity for our students to immerse themselves in one of the most unique, rapidly evolving, and economically important cultures on our planet. So that's the degree side of what we do at GIX. I'll tell you just a bit more about our professional learning programs, and I'll then introduce Richard. So just this month, we launched our first 2 professional learning programs. Both programs are focused on better understanding data science, and eventually, we'll expand our offerings to include professional programs covering artificial intelligence, ethics and technology, design thinking, global strategy, and more. Wow, that was a mouthful. So for now, I'll just tell you about the data sciences courses. The first course is data science, and it's for an executive fast track. It takes place from August 17th to 20th over 4 half days. It's targeted at the C-suite, VPs, and other senior leaders who are focused on understanding the data science landscape, making better investments, hiring, and strategic decisions. It focuses on the relative trade-offs between different data science options, strategies, and experiences, and it summarizes the core concepts and methods of data science. It explores the strategy of digital transformation through specific examples, case studies, and group discussions. The second course is the Data Science for Managers Technical Bootcamp. It takes place August 3rd through 14th over 10 half days. This course is for technical individual contributors and team leaders who add value through data, including those who are mid to high mid-level managers at large companies and senior leaders with technical backgrounds at smaller organizations. The course offers a balance between theory and practice with visualizations, demonstrations, exercises, case studies, and projects. It's designed to give students the tools necessary for a better, more thorough understanding of the potential of data science with their organization and how to manage teams of data scientists. So if you have any questions about anything we're up to at GIX, or you'd like to get involved as a partner, a mentor through our speaker series, or through our professional learning programs, you can reach out to me. Again, my name is Anthony Robinson, and my email address is arob@uw.edu. It's a short one. So with all that said, I'd like to introduce you all to Richard Wang. Richard is the CEO of the national technology education company, Coding Dojo. He is the sector practice leader for EdTech and Future of Work at the MIT Martin Trust Center. He's also an advisory committee member for equity and workforce innovation at the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship. Richard is committed to creating economic mobility for underserved communities and increasing opportunities for individuals to reskill or upskill so they can participate in the digital economy. He regularly leads initiatives that increase accessibility to tech education for disadvantaged individuals and that promote diversity within the tech industry. And his evangelism takes many forms and can be found in a variety of channels like Forbes Technology Council column, high-profile media interviews, and in his weekly podcast, The Work of the Future, where he interviews leaders to discuss issues facing today's workforce and how society can prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. So from here, I'll turn things over to Richard. Everyone have a great day, and thanks very much to the Chamber for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for this introduction. And let me pull up my slides. Thank you, everyone, for being on this workshop today, The Future of Work and Education. And my name is Richard Wang, and I am the CEO and business co-founder of Coding Dojo. Also, I am the MIT Education Technology and Future of Work Industry Sector Practice Leader at the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship. And also, I write in the Forbes Technology columns, and also I'm a former Technology Council member. Additionally, I work with the National Association for Community Colleges for Innovation Equity Advisory Committee in driving more accessibility and innovation initiatives for workforce development. The topic today is really part of my passion, and I have dedicated a lot of time into the subject future of work. I really think about, well, what's the implication of that in today, and more importantly, what does that really mean for many of us here? And so, to set a context for future of work, I just want to begin by saying we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And in this revolution, it's really a fusion of artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, robotics, quantum computing, nanotechnologies, and that's really this phase of digital economy where we're heading to. And everything that's powering this fourth industrial revolution is smart software and also smart hardware as well. And we are in the time of convergence. But let's go back in time. Let's go back in time thinking about the previous industrial revolution. So if we go back to the early, 1800s or late 1700s, 1760 to 1820, the first industrial revolution is really the steam engine that really revolutionized the way how we transport and how do we open economy and commute with each other. And the second industrial revolution we can see is sort of like the electricity that happened in the massive manufacturing revolution, innovation. We are creating massive products in a much more efficient, effective way. And as we move into the 1900s, we are stepping into the third industrial revolution, which is computing and internet speed. And now we are sort of like in the beginning of the digital revolution of our economy. And now, without that infrastructure, again, going back to what I said in the previous slide, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. And again, this revolution is about AR, VR, data science, robotics. That's going to take our economy to the next phase of the human race development. And so this is more of a pictorial, sort of like you can see how things has changed over time. We go from a single machine for textile now, you may need one worker in the entire factory to what it was before. Maybe you need 100 or 50 and 200, and everything is powered by computing. I think I saw some data on, if you go back to the early 1970s, for a car, there may be just 1 million line of code in an automobile. But now the basic number for lines of code in a car is about 100 million lines of code. And so we totally have shifted economy to this in this digital way. And so I think we cannot talk about the future of work without talking about the impacts of future of work, or the work that we are seeing this now in terms of income inequality. As we can see from 1950s to today, the 2020, productivity has increased by 252%. But the problem is that our wages had to start to see stagnated. And this started to happen in the early 1970s. And then in the early 1980s, you can just see this tremendous gap that's created. And, productivity essentially has grown 6 times more. Oh, I don't know what happened to my slide. Let me see. Okay. I just wanted to do a check if someone can say in the chat, can you see the slides? Okay, great, thank you. As you can see, the productivity has grown 6 times more than the basic pay, and our wages have not been keeping up. And so this creates significant income inequality in the current economy. And this is one of the biggest problems we have to solve. We often talk about the issue of unemployment rate. Before COVID, I think the talking points were we were at all-time low unemployment rate. But the problem is that we are at all-time low job quality. We are at all-time low economic mobility. And people are working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. And that is really not something we should be proud of. And so I want to move to the conversation to here to see why is our wages at all-time low? What is really happening? So this chart right here essentially really tells a story. And so you will see 3 different lines here. The agriculture sector labor force by the number percentage. So on the x-axis here, you can see the decades from 1840 to today, 2010. And on the y-axis here, you see the percentages of the labor force dominated by certain sector. So as you can see in the beginning of the 1840s, nearly 70% of the U.S. labor market is in agriculture. People are farmers. We're making food products. And over time, this agriculture has declined to today is about 3 to 4%. But at the same time, we are seeing all-time high productivity in the agriculture sector, in the farming sector, because everything has been automated. And what happened over time is that as the agriculture things start to decline, service sectors start to increase. And also what's happening is that industry such as manufacturing start to increase. And this is kind of like the first wave shock to our labor market economy, because as things start to automate, the manual labor start to decrease, and we are starting to see an increase in the number of people going to the manufacturing sector. We are seeing an increase in the people going to the service sector. And what the beauty of this is that back in the day and before the digital economy, the labor market, the people who's doing different jobs, easily transferable skills. You can go from a farmer going to the factory and produce physical goods, or you can be in the service sector to produce. And so that skill set is easily transferable. But today, what has happened is because digital economy, and what has happened is that the labor market skills is not easily transferable. Before you can go from a farmer to a manufacturing worker on assembly lines, but that assembly line worker skill is not going to be easily transferable to the high skill sector in coding, in hardware design, those type of skill sets. So that's how we are seeing such a disparity in terms of pay. It's really the labor market dynamics that the supply and demand is just not there that we have in terms of high skilled labor market workers. And so this is really a beautiful way to summarize sort of what is happening. What's happening here on labor market right now is called a hollowing out the middle effect. So this is the data that's drafted from 1970 to 2016. And so you can see there are 3 different segments here. One is sort of like the low skill jobs. The middle is the middle skill jobs, and also on the right hand side is the high skill jobs. So the low skill jobs, as you can see, is like the health and personal services, cleaning workers, operator labor. And the middle skill jobs are people working in the factories, people working in the office, or even some sales jobs. And the high skill jobs are the ones such as people who does perhaps some technician work, professionals, doctor and lawyers, and even coding, people who produce coding or data science, and also some managerial jobs. And over time, what has happened because of AI, data science, automation, what we have seen from 1970 to 2016 is that there is a significant decline in the manufacturing sector, in the office clerical work sector, and also even in some sales sector, just because everything has been online from, as we all can see, going from, selling stuff in the physical stores, now going to e-commerce. And what happened, the sad thing about this data here is that, in a very well-built economic mobility system, when these middle market people are being displaced, my personal term I use is called digital economy refugees. And they're being displaced by machine learning AI. What happened is that they could have got retrained and moved themselves back to the high skill sector. But what happened was that because we don't have that education pipeline, these guys now are moving to the low skill sectors. And then what happened was that once they get into low skill sectors, the Amazon Prime deliveries, the people who deliver food, and they start to become these gig workers or whatever that might be, they really get stuck. It's really hard to move out of this sector to get back in here. And so this is what we have seen in our economy from 1970 to 2016 today. And there's a huge breakdown in the economic mobility pipeline, education, labor market retraining sector. And so this is a major problem that they have to solve. And as you can see, we are seeing this, especially in the red states, where people are not educated. And I think you go to the Crust Belt, Bible Belt, and in Bellevue's area we live in, we are very fortunate to have one of the highest education population in the market. But to some of those areas, they just don't. And so they get stuck. I just believe that economic mobility is totally not there, and we are all really hurt because of this. And so this is one of the great charts, as you can see. The purple is the warehouse increase, worker percentage increase, and over time from 2000 to 2018, you can see a tremendous increase in this sort of like low-skill warehousing workers. And again, these are not high-quality jobs. These jobs does not provide economic mobility. And again, we have to provide relevant training to meet today's demand in the labor market so that we can produce jobs that are high quality. They are good jobs. And so again, I think what's happening right now. I want to talk about just a little bit of piece on automation here. Previously, like as you can see here, we automate physical work and the work that were prescriptive. And now AI can make sense of processes, can understand predictions, and so we are actually automating a lot of those middle skill jobs. And I think one thing I want to make it clear about this, my point here is that the automation, the AI is not a very binary outcome. It's not saying that there's a robot here, we'll just automate this job today, and tomorrow you'll be out of job. The process, based on the study at MIT and some of the things I've been involved in, the way how it works is that, for example, each jobs have about 30 different tasks. I come into the office, I look at this paper, I make a decision, yes or no, and then I make the determination and turn it to somewhere else. So each job, if you think about this, right, you codify each jobs into 10, 20, 30, 40 different tasks. AI, the way how AI works is that we start to automate those tasks. Maybe before you were doing 100% of those tasks, but now you're only doing 50%. But over time, the number will increase. And so in the beginning, maybe one person now can do two person's job. And over time, the one person maybe can do 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 person's job. And then that's how the job over time is being automated. And so again, this is another wage data I want to showcase based on education. On the left-hand side, by age, by male, 1963 to 2012. On the right-hand side is woman going from 1964 to 2012. And then as you can see, the bottom line here is a high school dropout, and then high school graduate, and then some college. And then the top two lines are bachelor degree and a greater than bachelor degree. And I think the point I want to make about here is that there are, in the United States today, only 35% of our population has a bachelor degree or higher. So majority of the US population, 70%, is a high school grad. The average American today is a high school grad. You can just Google, what percentage of US population has a college degree. And so what this means is that, again, go back to my previous slide, economic mobility is just not there for these guys. But if you go back to the early 1964 to sort of like the 1970s, you can see the peak. Everybody has a chance to access for economic mobility. We have the American dream. And today, we just don't have it anymore. Again, this goes back to skills. This goes back to training. This goes back to create market demand skill sets so that everybody can get paid a good wage, a good job to provide economic mobility. And today, this is a major problem that leads to economic instability that we're seeing today and many other things. And so, previously speaking, those high school grads, they can go into trucking jobs, which is one of the highest paid, the most lucrative career as a high school grad, you were making $70,000, $80,000 call center support and office clerical work. But the problem is that, these jobs are getting automated. And in Silicon Valley today, based on what I've seen, the autonomous trucks, the trucks that drive yourself, the technology is mature today. The only thing they need to figure it out is that it's the last mile challenge. That's what they have not figured out. When the trucks go into the city streets, there are so many variables they have to figure it out in terms of how the AI reads the road, the weather and whatnot. But in terms of going from highway point A to highway point B, that is totally there. And the thing about the trucking, for example, this sector is that if they start to building warehouses around the major highway hubs, majority of that job can be eliminated. I know a lot of people still think that will not happen, but one thing about technology adoption is that you can never know when that will take off. Once it takes off, it's like a quicksand effect. It just goes off so fast, and then you'll be too late for us to react. Today, we have about 2.3 million truckers in the United States. When those jobs are being automated, what are they going to do? And so again, this is an opportunity that we have in front of us, I believe, by the Department of Labor estimating that there will be 1 million jobs for computing by 2020, which is this year. This is a huge opportunity for us, a call to action for us to retrain the labor market that we have today. And I think I also believe that it is huge incentive for the federal government to actually put out to retrain the people to get into computing jobs. When you think about how the payback is, often I get asked, Richard, how is the federal government going to get payback? 20% of income tax on the $30,000-$40,000 job is not 20% to $100,000 job. So over time, you get paid back by tax revenue. So again, I just want to put this into a persona. Imagine you are 40 years old. Right now, life sciences has extended life tremendously. People now are living to 90 to 100. And by the time, 50 years later, I can only imagine biosciences will extend our life much, we can live much longer lives. Imagine if you're 40 years old, a college grad. You're 40 years old, one of the 70% of the high school grad in the United States, your job getting eliminated, you are living longer, there's no pipeline. What are you going to do? And again, this is a major, major problem that we have to solve. And so again, if you look at new economy jobs, I'm talking about web software development, product management, UI UX, data science, cybersecurity. There's just a lot of these jobs that are out there right now. We need to retrain our workforce, develop the workforce to be ready for these jobs. That's in front of us right now today. I believe the last data I saw from, I think that was the Washington Opportunity Scholarships, at any given time, there are 5,000 software developer jobs wide open in the United States. Just in the Washington states alone, actually, in the state of Washington. And so, the proposal, that we put forth, with a professor at MIT, Roberto Rubin, is that we need to create a circular skill economy. And what do I mean by that is that the speed of technology changes constantly. And that speed will only increase. And the key question is that how do we stay ahead and be productive? And so the policy proposal we put in place that we wish to send our workers go back to get trained every 7 to 10 years. So we're always relevant to the current technology landscape and be productive. And so again, it just goes back to, we have to create programs for a better future in terms of creating economic mobility. Our current education system is just too rigid. We do not teach enough in-demand skills. And it doesn't take 4 years. And it's certainly too expensive. And so I just think, from a public policy perspective, the private sector, public sector, we have a lot of opportunity to work together to create an economic mobility pipeline. And so that's it for my presentation today. And thank you so much for listening. And you can reach out to me at my email at Coding Dojo, and also here's my LinkedIn. And I would love to listen for some questions.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was an incredible presentation with a lot of things to be excited about and a lot of things to be maybe not fearful of, but certainly things to heed. I want to go back to your conversation or your comments about education and the rigidity of the program. You know, everything from early education, primary, secondary, post-secondary. If you were, stepping in and czar for a day, what are some of the, what's some of the low-hanging fruit in our primary education system for the folks, under the age of 20? What are some of those changes that you would make? What are some of the low-hanging fruit that you would immediately move to change about how that system is structured?
Yeah, I think there are two dimensions, and I would just start my statement with saying talent is evenly distributed. Doesn't matter where your color is, doesn't matter where you're coming from, talent is evenly distributed, but opportunities are not. Talent is evenly distributed, but opportunities are not. Today, we have 1.3 million students in the United States today are homeless. We're a first world country. We have 1.3 million students are homeless. That's unacceptable. That's a joke. Where spend our tax dollar money? And so that's one. And two, the second dimension on this is that, if COVID have showcased anything, it really highlighted the equity and income inequality problem with our education system. We talk about online education, but there are millions, underserved Black and brown households does not have a laptop, does not have Wi-Fi. And so the third data point, I think there was the survey went out by a very reputable institution. He asked us, does your household has a Wi-Fi? Does your household has a computer? In some areas we have. And third question is really people get stuck saying that, does your kid have a quiet place where they can study? And that, a lot of households or families just don't. And so if I say let's not do anything fancy, let's just provide our kids the future, the basics. Let's pay our teacher normal wages. I come from China once, 13 years old. In China, we said, the teachers are nation builders. They are future shapers. In the United States, we pay them nothing. We pay them $45,000, $50,000, $55,000. We force them to be out of the job. Let's pay our educators, nation builders, future shapers, the wage that they deserve. Let's give our students laptops, Wi-Fi. That should be a commodity good. Let's just do the basics. Yeah, that's what we do. Let's not do anything fancy. Let's just fix the basics first.
One of the other things that you brought up here is the idea of this kind of cultural idea of retraining opportunities every 7 to 10 years. How, from an industry perspective or a private sector perspective or an employer's perspective, would you institute or incentivize a program like that? And how, from a societal or a government perspective, would you be able to do that? And are there any models out there that fit the bill?
Yeah, I think based on our research, I think the country the most progressive ones that's doing a really good job. It's Singapore. I see Len here ask a question also, what kind of policy changes are we envisioned to make? I think Singapore is a great model because they are big as like a state, but also they are not really that big of a city. But I think they have done a really good job in pushing out tax incentives and subsidies for their workers to be trained, and they are one of the most they're one of the top developed economies. And Singapore has no resources. If you look at their geographic location, they are on a piece of rock like Hong Kong. But they were able to really build themselves to get where they are today because the emphasis on workforce development and the policies on retraining education to their local workforce.
You were talking a bit about funding in education and teacher pay and things like that. The teachers here in Washington, I think on the west side of the state are in the, average in the mid to 80s or so. And in some districts, Bellevue and Everett and Seattle, the average is closer to upper 90s and $100,000 a year for the average teacher salary. Is there, and if you look and compare per capita spending on education, at least primary education, to other industrialized nations, the U.S. actually spends more, but as you point out, sometimes with less robust results. Is there something outside of just the formal education system that policymakers need to be focused on in terms of the, treating the whole child and not just the 8 hours school day that will have a bigger impact on education outcomes?
Yeah, I think to answer this one, there are two dimensions to the problem. I think if you look at the U.S. education system, the U.S. education system is not uniform managed and funded by the federal government. Majority of the U.S. education schools are funded by local property tax. Say if you live in Tacoma, Lakewood, and you're not in a high income bracket, and people are household income say $40,000 a year, versus Bellevue, average person make 100,000, 200,000. If you look at, so you pay a different property tax to fund your local school. When you, for example, I say in Bellevue, you can raise, I just make the number simple, like say, 100 million from the property tax, versus a low income neighborhood like brown, black areas, you can only get maybe 1 million. There is a huge disparity of equity and income. That's more of a, that's more of a systematic racism built into our system, because the support is totally different. And then the problem with that is that there's more of a system dynamic vicious loop, right? The more you can fund your school, you have better schools, the more housing price goes up, the more people you want to move into this area, the better your kids going to be in high school, in college. But if you go to a low income area, you cannot find that much money. You have less to pay the teachers, and you have less to reinvest in the schools. And then your kids' likelihood to go to college is less. And there's just this very bad vicious circle. So I think we need to fundamentally shift the policy. I know Obama trying to do that, but the union, it is way too strong. And also, I would say that another dimension is that we spend, I think the U.S. spends about $200 to $300 billion a year on education technology, to using, the buzz term is personalized learning, AI. Based on a study I have seen at MIT, suggests that it has made no impact. It actually made no impact before, or noticeable impact before the implementation of education technology or not. And the question goes to why? How could it be? I think one of the things we have found in the learning science is that education, it's when people, the human learning progress is a psychological phenomenon. It is not an information phenomenon. There's a fundamental difference between sort of like you go into when you feel encouraged. We all been in college and high school where this one teacher made a thing that is so incredible, you want to learn. And also you want to be better, you want to overcome those challenges. So the human psychology where the teacher's there to say, hey, you can do better, the encouragement, it is much more all the way than the technology. So again, I just want to go back to, we need to go back to, investing in our people, investing in our teachers. And again, there is huge disparity between, the property tax that fund different schools in different local neighborhoods. And so I think that's another issue we have to fix. If we want to get equity and income inequality in terms of education, and also if you look at the data in the United States, there's a direct correlation between the SAT score to the average household income. The higher the income, the higher the SAT score. I think that data point itself, it tells about the lack of equity problem.
One of the comments that you made earlier is about the difference between the distribution of talent, which is equal, and the distribution of resources, which certainly is not. And we've had a lot of folks on the line that have really fallen in love with that phrase. And again, I want to invite folks that are joining in here to make sure they use the Q&A tab to share their questions or put their questions in the chat window. One question that I have about that is when you're from the employer perspective, we've talked a little bit about systemic, the public education system, but from the employer perspective, how do they take a role? What kind of programs should they be putting in place particularly if they have a large number of what would be considered relatively lower skilled or high school graduate only workforce. We've seen Amazon, and we had their director of workforce development as one of our kickoff speakers to this program. They talked a lot about some of the upskilling programs that they formally put in place for their warehouse staff. How do you envision bringing similar or other ideas to other employers, especially in many cases smaller employers, so that they can help upskill their workforce?
Yeah, I think Amazon is probably one of the most. I think Amazon, Microsoft, based on my work in this area, and also my years working at Coding Dojo, partner with different employers, I would say Amazon and Microsoft are the two most progressive, probably not the beacon of light in this area. Actually, and Microsoft is a really great lead program where they get people underserved minorities to join them as apprentice to become software developers, UI UX developers, and product managers. And Amazon the same. They have I think it's the Amazon Partner Success Program where you can go into their warehouse, train your workers to get to software developers and whatnot in the new tech economy skills. But the problem is that that's just not enough. I mean, we need a much more. All the company doing this, and also even I think the point goes back to for the smaller companies, they simply just don't have the scale to be able to do that. Because you want to run a small business, you want to get people who can come in, provide value right away, and so the margin of error and the tolerance of the productivity is totally in a different calculus when they are doing that. I don't think it's not fair for us to force on small company to do that. I think that's where government can step in, create the tax incentives, and create a localized private training partnership to be able to do that. And I think I'm seeing Olivia's question here is that what about your thoughts about apprenticeship programs coupled with 2-year degrees for career in tech and life sciences, and how can the opportunity be better introduced to high school level? I think that's totally true. I think Olivia, go back again. I don't think we read history anymore. If we go back to history, how did higher education come about? If you look at this, in the very beginning, our education system was essentially by the Greek system. It was Socrates. He was teaching people on the street corners with his student following him, and then the next what happened was the Catholics, the Christians started to teach people about the disciples, how to do this and that, and then the next phase what happened was the Germans. The Germans developed this testing system, the classrooms, to get skill. And so how do we qualify? And then we kind of stuck in that German system for a couple hundred years now. We just never innovated from that because it works. So now you really challenge the fundamentals of hey, can they innovate from this old system? And how do we make it much more fluid to the current situation when technology and speed is shifting all the time? And so I think that's a great idea, a 2-year degree with apprenticeships for 12 months, 2 years. I think Germany has done a really good job in this, where they have apprenticeship programs. But my criticism of the Germany apprenticeship model in Europe is that it still doesn't help the 40, 50 years old, when their skills no longer relevant. So again, I kind of want to go back to this circular skill economy concept policy proposal. Every 7 to 10 years, go back and retrain. Government gives tax incentives for capital assets, right? When you depreciate, you get tax incentive off that. But we don't do that for human capital. And the question goes to why not? And also, there are a whole bunch of stuff within the tax bracket and policy we can do to help companies to retool their workforce. It's like we are treating machines more important than we treat humans. So there are a whole bunch of things we can do better. Yeah.
You brought up testing a moment ago, and in the news lately, we've seen a number of universities, including the University of Washington, move away from formal ACT and SAT testing as a requirement for admission into their programs. Is that a mistake, or is that actually liberating students from a narrow analysis of their skills and providing an opportunity to more holistically look at folks that will or may not succeed in a higher education setting?
It's a great move that they made. I think the problem is that if they don't do that, university, I'm not so sure. Look, I think the university model here is this, right? They need a student revenue to fund their staff to operate just like a business. And so if they don't do that, they may go bankrupt. How are they going to fund this couple $100 billion stadium they build and this universities? I'm not pointing to University of Washington, but they need revenue. So this kind of force your hand to be creative and innovative. You know what? Let's get rid of the test because a lot of people are not going to take the test. I think that's one. And two, I kind of applaud them too, because now they open the doors to a whole bunch of traditional students to have a shot at these top tier institutions. And also it's a long overdue. We should have done this from a long time ago. We all know that what it takes to be successful is, do you show a long time or not? Are you passionate about your subject? Are you great enough to overcome? Do you work hard enough? Those are the criteria to become successful now. And so why are we using one ICT score to dictate the student's future? And so I think that is a long overdue. We should give everybody a fair chance.
There's some studies out there that show that there's also an individual mindset with regards to education and the attainment of new skills, that the difference between those that view education as a formal process and something that you receive by sitting in a chair, and those that think that knowledge is something that you need to go out and find on your own to solve the problems that are in front of you. What kind of systemic changes can we make either through formal education or through the workplace to create a culture where individuals are taking as much responsibility for their own knowledge acquisition as systems and employers should?
Yeah, I think to answer that question, I think we're probably going to see that type of innovation from the private sector more than the public institutions. I think one thing is sort of like we see from COVID is that public institutions, they're just way too rigid. There's no way to innovate. And as we can kind of see from the current COVID, everything's transitioning online. It took a tremendous amount of effort just to move things online. And you have a very strong labor union within the typical university staff side. And also you have this thing called the tenure. You can't get fired from anything you're doing. And so the public institutions are too rigid in their framing. And so in terms of the gap year, or what people call development year and purpose year, taking time to really finding out what they're truly passionate about, it's going to be coming from sort of like the private sector where you find more flexibility in the education model.
We think about automation as being a risk to low wage labor. You talked about maybe the disruptions in things like the trucking industry, manufacturing, distribution, but we also see AI perhaps taking a larger role, and blockchain taking a larger role in providing real disruption to high skilled positions, lawyers, accountants, even programmers, as we see programming languages where you sit at a computer and punch buttons be replaced with natural language programming that's more accessible to more people. What's the sense of how those kinds of high skilled technological advancements that put high skilled jobs more in jeopardy? What's the expectation of what kind of impact that's going to have on the workforce, and how high skilled individuals are going to have to react?
Yeah, again, I think this just goes back to retraining. I think those high-skilled sector of labor market, people are certainly very, very well trained, and so I think they really understand in terms of learning how to learn, learning how to adapt, and I think one of the key attributes of a great software developer is sort of like, hey, can you pick up a new language pretty fast and learn on your own? And we are seeing a lot of that from software developers in the current industry, where they're able to pick something up pretty fast by themselves. And so, again, just go back to retraining. You can't stop in the current economy. Things are moving too fast. Doesn't matter what side of the labor market you are in. The jobs today is not going to be the same as jobs tomorrow. We are going to do it differently. And so you just have to constantly improve your skill sets.
We've got time for probably one more question, and then give you an opportunity with some closing thoughts. But I want that question to be about your advice for someone, particularly someone that may only have a high school degree, perhaps not someone just out of high school, where there are more cultural expectations perhaps about community college or four-year degree, but someone with a high school degree in their late 20s, 30s, early 40s, in trying to figure out how they can, not lose out on the opportunities that our economy provide and kind of feel that sense of stagnation. What advice do you have for them? What resources should they turn to? How can they take charge? And what's the best advice do you have for the employers that are listening today about how to help those people along on their workforce?
Yeah, I think in terms of for people, I would say one, really, I think that the future sector job growth for the next decade or two is going to be healthcare. People are living longer. It needs more care. We need more nurses. We need more doctors. So healthcare will be grow. Just the fact that people will live longer and they're going to need support. That's one. And telehealth. We probably going to go to the doctor appointments less and less using our phones. So telehealth is also a growing sector. And engineering jobs and also trades. Plumbing jobs and those type of trades that will stay. And I don't think robot will automate those anytime soon. And so I would say those are the three different segments of jobs in the labor market you should focus on. And really the question goes kind of to, what do you feel is passionate to you? And is that sustainable? So that's one, I think, for the workers today. And in terms of the employers, I think really it's more of a question I would defer to the government, because the employers, their number one goal is about sort of in the sense of how do I drive profitability, increase my bottom line. And so, especially for smaller employers. And so it is not necessarily their job to reach out to education partners or other sectors to help them produce that. And so I would say this more goes back to the local government. How do we create a local talent ecosystem that is pulling together, let's say, value integrator, to put together the employers, education providers, to create incentives for us to create an ecosystem that everybody can talk to each other, understand the needs, create a pipeline that actually we can measure the success for. Yeah.
Richard Wang, thank you so much for being with us today. You have incredible insights and a lot of great practical ideas about what folks that are listening, whether you're on the employee side or the employer side of the aisle. A lot of great information. Again, Richard Wang from Coding Dojo, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
We're going to be taking a brief hiatus from our leadership conference next week in celebration of Independence Day, but we will be back on Friday, July 10th with an all-star panel of experts, including FBI Special Agent Joel Martini and Associate Professor from Seattle University, Roshanik Roshandel, as they tackle the topic of big data in private spaces. Of course, you can register anytime at bellevuechamber.org or at the pop-up on your screen. And please don't forget to invite your friends and colleagues to participate in these great weekly programs. Earlier today, there was a reference to COVID testing on the east side of the lake. The Bellevue Chamber was very proud to work with QFC Kroger and Bellevue College to partner in bringing an active infection COVID drive-through testing site to Bellevue College, which is in operation. There is a link that we can make available here so that you can register. Again, all appointments are based on registration, so please make sure that you fill out the form, but this is a free testing and you don't need to get out of your car. And I will pull that information up for you right now. Finally, I want to again thank Richard Wang, our presenting sponsors, Amazon, our major sponsors, AT&T, Puget Sound Energy, King County, and the City of Bellevue for helping make this series possible. As always, we've got one final thing to do before we break for the day. Amazon has generously donated a Echo Dot each week to raffle off. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out who from our audience is going to be the big winner this week. Again, after we select a winner, our staff will get in touch with them and make sure that they get access to their dot. And Jennifer S. is the person that is the big winner this week. Congratulations. And if you'd like a shot at winning a dot next week, get registered right away. We will see you again on July 10th as we begin the second half of the Bellevue Chamber Future of Work Leadership Conference. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and have a happy Independence Day. Thanks for joining.